Hello, Kingmakers. Robert here, and as always, it's been a bit of a while since I last made a video. I have today a question that's come up, which is a question that I do get actually fairly often when I speak to people in crypto. So I thought I would read it. I thought I would give you my answer, and hopefully there's a little bit of value in it for you. So this is a tweet that I got the other day saying, first of all, it's from Onimisi. It says, "Hello, Robert. Would you recommend books? I have read several. If you can also recommend, that would be nice too. I would also love some on virality and network effect, if any. Thank you. Love your content on YouTube." Appreciate the compliment. Okay, books. I have made a bit of a list. I'm not the biggest reader in the world, and I think I should be reading more, but I feel like I built a pretty good foundation. I was reading more back in the day, and I tend to learn more at this point by doing, and also obviously videos. I think that a lot of people prefer videos to reading, but lately I've been doing more audiobooks just to sort of get back into things. But today I wanted to just share some of the main books that I think I found the most value out of. And sometimes it's a little bit difficult because, at least for me, I find that I might get like one or two ideas out of a 300-400 page book that sticks with me for 10-12 years. And I don't necessarily remember where each thing came from because I got a terrible memory. But let me crack into it. So I will start off with a book. And sometimes you will find that it's not so much about the book per se, but the person writing it. Meaning they have things that you should consume, basically everything that they do. When they have lectures, they have videos, they have other books, and so on and so forth. And so that's the case with the first one. This is a book called Behave by Robert Sapolsky. And I'll be honest, I don't know that book super well. What I do know pretty well is he's a lecturer or a professor at Stanford, I believe. And he's got a lecture on human behavior biology. And if you've consumed any of my content, read any of my tweets, you know that I think that the core of all marketing is to understand human behavior. So Robert Sapolsky is incredibly intelligent, and you should watch his lectures. They're free on YouTube. The dude goes on 60-minute lecture without saying without skipping a beat, and just rattles off great information. So highly recommend checking out Robert Sapolsky. Moving on, I'm going to say Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. This was a book on negotiations. Just a lot of interesting nuggets here and there about just such, he was a FBI lead hostage negotiator. And what was interesting was that, typically when you negotiate, it's like this person wants to buy the thing for 100, the person wants to sell it for 200, and they go, okay, well, let's meet in the middle at 150. Like, I can't do that if I'm trading hostages, right? Like, kill the two and I'll take the other two, right? So he had to win everything. And so I just found it really fascinating, the things that he had to deal with. And I think just as a tiny little nugget, one of the things that I learned from there was sort of the importance of not trying to go for yes. Everybody's always trying to go for yes, but trying to get a no instead, because when we say no, we kind of feel safe, right? Because if you say yes, you're signing up for something, in some way, shape, or form. But when you say no, you're effectively not signing. So, just saying it's now a bad time. Like if you called somebody, right? It said, it's now a bad time. If they say no, they actually feel more way safer than do you have a couple of minutes to talk? It's a much better to try to get a no. So anyway, moving on, more marketing stuff. Scientific advertising. By the way, another thing, what you'll find in some of these book recommendations, a lot of the good stuff was really written back in the day, like 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And what we have now is sort of derivatives or this sort of modern spin on the same thing. So a lot of the foundation was really really old books. So Scientific Advertising by Claude Hopkins. I think I just pulled it up actually. This book is from, 2008 is what I have, but it would have been a reprint because the 2008 Claude Hopkins was operating in, I think, the 40s or 50s. So in any case, Scientific Advertising is interesting. One of the things that you learn from there is that you should always speak to people on a one-on-one level. Because what happens is when we communicate to people, online, we'll write a tweet or make a a video or you make an ad or something, we tend to think in terms of groups. Like a lot of people start their YouTube videos like, hey guys, as if there's like a group of guys sitting there together watching the video. So like you should say like, hey, how are you doing today? Because it's one person sitting there, right? And I thought that was a nice little nugget. Cashvertising was another good one. And this, again, sort of comes back to human behavior and understanding how people operate. Because if you can understand how people operate, you can create effective marketing. So cashvertising, one of the main things that I actually, again, didn't get out of the book. I think it might be in the book, but I got it from a video that I saw of the guy giving a presentation. And I can't even remember his name right now because, once again, I got terrible memory. But he was doing this demonstration of like, he pulled some guy from the audience and he was like, okay, who's got a product or something? He's like, pitch it to me. And then he's like, I'm going to play the person on the other side and I'm going to think out loud. And the person starts pitching and he goes, what's in it for me? 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 That's what people are thinking. So that's the number one thing you should be answering as you're selling, because that's what we're doing, right? You're selling in some way, shape, or form. You're trying to, step one, get people's attention. And if you can't even answer that first question, you're toast. What's in it for me? That's the number one question. That's the first question you got to answer. Then we have David Ogilvy. So this is one of the books I actually have in print. Ogilvy on advertising. He was, Ogilvy, he's sort of one of the grandfathers of advertising and marketing. And he had an advertising agency that still exists today. So it's, I will say a lot of his writing is sort of like about running an agency as opposed to marketing, although there's that as well. And one really interesting thing from him was that he said he didn't like to use celebrities in his ads because he found that people would remember the celebrity, but they would forget what the actual ad was about. And what's interesting now is when you look at advertising, particularly in the US, there's a celebrity in every freaking ad. Like TV commercials, every single one has a celebrity now. So that's interesting. And I wonder if, my bet is that it doesn't actually work very well and that it's actually just become this thing that like, oh, everybody else is doing it, we should get a celebrity too. Of course, there are examples where it does work, but I don't know. It's obviously typically expensive. In any case, Ogilvy, he's written a bunch of stuff. So what you can see is, apart from the human behavior biology, you will find that the other sort of category of books that I recommend are advertising based, right? So we have cashvertising, we have this Ogilvy book, we have scientific advertising, and so on and so forth. And the next one that I'm going to recommend as well, which is Breakthrough Advertising. That actually is a great book that has a bunch of concepts that I've spoken on before, market sophistication, as well as market awareness. Those are two really interesting concepts. So Breakthrough Advertising is a really good one that I recommend. Then we have The Status Game by Will Storr. We're coming back to human behavior, right? Status is a huge thing, especially for men. Then I'll say that Robert Greene also works a lot in, this kind of persuasion space. And a lot of his books, which you can find, whether it's I think the last one was called, well, he writes a lot of books, so I don't even remember the last one, but Google it real quick. The Laws of Human Nature is the one I was thinking of. And obviously he's got the one with 50 Cent called The 50th Law, and so on and so forth. Nonetheless, very big on persuasion. Then we have Propaganda, but by Edward Bernays. He's literally, I don't know if he coined the term, but I think so, because he coined the concept of propaganda, which is effectively trying to influence, public perception on any given topic. And so this is, in crypto, massive, right? Because we talk about narratives, and that's what propaganda is. Propaganda is basically what's the narrative that we want people to wrap their heads around or believe in, and then how can you go out there and make that happen, get people to believe that. So that was written, I think, in the 1920s or 30s. So once again, it's really interesting that some of these ideas, they're 100 years old, and we are still doing the same stuff. It's because human nature doesn't really change. It's just like technology changes how we interact with things. And so the way things are done might change, but the sort of core underlying human nature, doesn't really change. So that's interesting. Then we got Sapiens. So that's a very famous book. So you might have heard of that one. So again, we're sort of coming back to learning a little bit more about human beings and human behavior. And then I'll throw in one more, which is about storytelling, which is another really interesting skill to have as a marketer. And this is a book that probably nobody's watching this, that nobody's watching this has read, or maybe I'm wrong, but it's called Wire for Story by Lisa Krohn, I think. Very interesting book about storytelling, and the punchline, really sort of the main takeaway for me, was that the core of any story is sort of the internal change that the person is going through in the story. So you've got your main character, they've got a thing they want, they've got a problem, right? And what's sort of the internal transformation that happens throughout that story. So I thought she did a great job with that book. So those are just some of the books that I've gotten some nuggets out of. And once again, if we sort of, oh, Christ, I forgot the biggest one of them all, which I've talked about so many times. Blair Warren, you should read and listen to everything you can get your hands on from Blair Warren. And I will tell you that he does have a book which you cannot find, I think, in print. And it's called The Complete and Uncensored Lessons from Blair Warren's Forbidden Keys to Persuasion. Maybe Google it. I don't know. Maybe there's some PDFs out there. I don't know. That's all on you. But you should get that information, because that is the most powerful book on persuasion and just like how humans work, I would say. So Blair Warren is the number one go-to for me. And so you did have another question as well, which was about, going viral and network effect. And the thing is, man, everybody who writes these damn books, like Contagious, they never had a single thing go viral. It's like very observational. And one of my old business partner / friend, who I still speak to quite often, his name is Alan, and he's a very, very good marketer. And he had this thought, or this saying, which was like, this guy knows marketing and this guy knows about marketing, or this guy knows virality and this guy knows about virality. So I feel like this guy, Jonah Burger, I could be wrong. I don't think he's got a single thing that's ever gone viral, and he's written a book about going viral. So he knows about going viral, but he doesn't know how to actually go viral, if that makes any sense. So I've had a couple of things go viral, and it's kind of hard to try to teach it. I have seen recently there are a bunch of people teaching it, like TikTok. So I think there may be a little bit more of a method to the madness nowadays, especially with these like short form pieces of content. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, I don't even want to touch it. It's like the things that I've had gone viral were just like amazing stories. Like I made a video about, I cut up a video like 10 years ago about Anthony Bourdain telling his story about how he became famous at like age 50. And it's an incredible story. And it went viral and got like 13 million views. And that was just like an awesome story. And that's it. Like, it's got to be awesome. And then, of course, you need that initial thing to occur for it to take place. And I think that was one thing that was covered in this book, which is that you need that catalyst, whether it's like a celebrity or somebody with a little bit of a following. So every viral moment has to have that sort of, it has to reach that one person that can sort of like make it happen. And I think that's maybe why it's like way easier to go viral now, is like these new algorithms from TikTok and whatnot, where actually it's like the best content wins. They just give every piece of content a proper shot. Like they'll show it to 500 people and say like, is this any good? Whereas like, I really am starting to dislike Twitter more and more, because I feel like they're going the opposite way, where followers matter to, in my opinion, more than ever on Twitter, and great content just like doesn't really get any eyeballs on it. So I've sort of personally just given up on X. Like, unless they fix that, I just don't see any time in like investing time into it. So anyway, this was a question that came up. Hopefully, there's a couple of things in here that you get value out of. I'm going to sign off. Market's going through interesting things right now. We just had, let's see, Ethereum is at 2970. Bitcoin is at 56,800. So we crash is not the right word, but definitely a bit of a dip in the last couple of days. It's interesting to see what's going to happen with the market going forward. Is this the top, which would be sort of breaking expectations, I think, for a lot of people? Or are we just on track and this is just a regular sort of mid-bull run dip and we're going to come back stronger than ever and get $100,000 Bitcoin? I don't know. But I think that's a good time to shut this video down. Have a good one. See you soon.